This panel is entitled Leveraging E-commerce for Trade Expansion in CARICOM. Today, we are thrilled to explore the transformative potential of e-commerce in revolutionizing trade and business across the Caribbean. As the digital landscape rapidly evolves, it is crucial for SMEs, entrepreneurs, and regional businesses to harness the power of e-commerce to expand their market reach, streamline operations, and enhance customer operations and experiences. Our esteemed panelists, representing a diverse range of experts in digital banking, technical development, digital fintech, policy development, infrastructure, and digital transformation support training, will help us to delve into the opportunities and challenges of integrating e-commerce into the Caribbean trade ecosystem. We will discuss how Connect Caribe's eShops platform can serve as a transshipment hub, enabling Caribbean businesses to access an 18 million strong market. Through this panel, we aim to uncover insights and strategies that will empower local enterprises to thrive in the digital economy, fostering economic growth and regional integration. Let us get to engaging in meaningful discussions, share innovative solutions, and pave the way for more connected and digitally prosperous Caribbean business. Allow me to introduce the panel. Today, we are very pleased to have the following persons join us. Mr. Gavin Bavell, Principal Consultant of G.M. Bavell and Associates. As Gavin makes his way, we also want to welcome Ms. Natasha Edwin Walcott, Trade and Development Expert with Caribbean Export. Join me also in welcoming CEO of Sagicor Bank, George Thomas. And of course, President of the E-commerce Division of Connect Caribe, Anthony Hinkson. Our final panelist, Chairman and Founder of Global Integrated FinTech Solutions, Mr. Dave Sahada. Once again, our objective is to provide you with actionable insights and practical solutions for leveraging e-commerce to empower SMEs in the Caribbean. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. As they say, ladies first. Can I call you Natasha? Natasha, we would like you to share with us what are some of the specific programs and resources that your agency can provide to help SMEs develop the necessary digital skills and infrastructure to join Connect Caribe's e-commerce platform.
Sure, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting Caribbean Export to be part of this initiative. Let me start off by speaking a bit about Caribbean Export. And it's so good to see you, Dr. Thomas. We would have recently, only 2 weeks ago, signed an MOU with the Play On Group. And that is to say, Caribbean Export, we are the regional agency that assists the private sector in becoming competitive. So when we say in becoming competitive, we mean we host several capacity building interventions to companies like Dave. Dave has been with us for a few of those, including to Africa, Mission to Africa last year. So we provide support through various interventions, and one of those is not just e-commerce, but really the digitalization of business, right? And so one of the initiatives that we've done over the years, in fact, in 2022, Dr. Thomas came to our Caribbean Investment Forum in Trinidad and Tobago. We had that forum essentially is to assist businesses to get investment. At that meeting, he made some connections, and here we are 3 years later, seeing those fruits of his labor, right? We work with the private sector across 15 CARICOM countries, that is all of CARICOM, plus the Dominican Republic. And we, over the years, digitalization has been a key focus of ours. COVID taught us that if you were not online, you did not exist really. From consuming entertainment, your groceries, everything. And in fact, we undertook a survey just on the heels of the pandemic, and it showed that several, almost, the majority of our businesses suffered because they were not online. So one of the initiatives that we have is a partnership with the IDB, and it looks at it's the Caribbean Digital Training Institute, which will launch in October. But the precursor to that is what we have, what is called the digital checkup tool. And it's an assessment. So a company, your first point of departure before getting on that training platform is an assessment of your digital maturity. So you go through several questions, and at the end of that report, you get a diagnostic that says, I don't know, gifts. We know that's not you, but because you're doing things. But if it were to give you a report, it will tell you, hey, you need to work on your marketing, maybe your sales strategy. It will give you a diagnostic and recommend certain actions that you will then proceed to the Caribbean Digital Training Platform to undertake those training initiatives. So that is just one of the initiatives that we have. We also would have undertaken over the last 2 years a virtual e-commerce accelerator program. And again, that was with support from Expertise France. And they as well, through, I think it was a 6-month training, every 2 weeks, capacity building, 2-hour sessions weekly, where several beneficiaries or private sector from the region would have participated in that. So these are just, I'll stop here, there are several others that we do, but these are just some of the areas that we work to assist companies to become digitally ready, to become competitive, recognizing that, as I said, if you're not online, you don't exist. And maybe if I can end with one example, we do a lot of trade shows, right? So come October, we'll be taking some companies to a Paris trade show. Experience has shown that the buyers want to see you online. If they want your hot sauce, they want your products from the Caribbean, the rum, they have to be able to see your digital footprint. Otherwise, they're not speaking to you. So these are just very practical examples of, what we can tell you about the importance of being online. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Natasha. And certainly, even with your strong e-commerce presence, you must have strong e-payments available to you as well. We're very pleased to have on our panel the experts from Sagicor Bank. Over to you, Mr. George Thomas. Please give us some insight into those very cutting-edge banking solutions that Sagicor Bank has for those venturing into e-commerce.
Good afternoon, everyone. Crystal, thank you. You're very generous with the term expert, but I'll take it. We at Sagicor Bank, just to give a bit of a background, we're just over a year old. We are the first digital bank, neobank in the Caribbean, and all Barbadian entity. I dare say we're probably one of the fastest growing financial entities ever in Barbados. We have north of 17,000 clients already in this short space of time and continuously growing. We had over 1,000 a month. So it's from a payments perspective, we offer every service that a traditional brick and mortar bank offers except checks. And we'll soon be accepting those with based on the central bank service that they're check imaging service that they're rolling out in the next month or so. So we are a full service bank. So when you think digital bank, I know a lot of people think crypto, they think all kinds of things, but we are a bank with a fintech wrapping, let me just say. So everything you do from loans, car notes, mortgages, secured, unsecured, credit cards, debit cards, and a whole lot more we have to offer. We just don't use paper, no paper. You onboard with us digitally. You don't have to go anywhere to get on board. You just take a selfie, take a picture of your government ID, upload your proof of address, which would be a bill, a utility bill, and voila. We contact you if there's any questions we need to ask you, and in the comfort of your home, you're onboarding. Right? And that's, I think we have about a 96% SAT rate, and but my marketing tells me I'm negative. I only think about the 4% really, because I want 100% satisfaction, and that's our non-degree or that's our raison d'etre. That's why we're here. We're here to delight clients. It's all about the technology. I'm an engineer, full disclosure, but I'm not here to talk AI. AI is there. We use it. That's how we are able to do these things. But it's not about the AI. It's not about the fact that we're 100% cloud. It's not about all the cool tech. It is about being able to provide excellent client experiences. It's about being able to be safe and secure, because I dare say my biggest tech spend is in cybersecurity and risk management. So when you're thinking payments, you want to know that when you execute a payment, it goes to who you intend it to, the expected beneficiary, not a man in the middle. No pun intended. There's a man in the middle of tap for those of you that don't are familiar with and you don't expect to be fished, right? So we spend a lot of time and money, and I think knock on wood, we survived the global supply chain debacle that occurred on Friday. It did not impact us at all. What it has done, though, it has made me even more, I should say, paranoid. So we're even relooking our business continuity and incident response for such, because digital, we can't afford to be down, right? So we take every moment of every glitch, we take it very seriously. And you will see anytime there's negative chatter online, we get with those clients and they will all come back and tell you, we take care. When we mess up, we clean up. So that's Sagicor Bank in a nutshell. So from a payments perspective, whether we are very delighted to see this project come to being, because we've been engaged with SMEs, small businesses. As another well-kept secret, we actually have corporate accounts for small business, medium-sized, and large corporates. And the cry has been a lack of indigenous e-commerce, the high cost of e-commerce, and on top of that, the high cost of being able to ship goods across the region. Is actually cheaper to ship goods produced here to the US or even Europe than it is to ship to St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Trinidad, Guyana. So from a payments perspective, of course, we are happy to see this. And based on our world-class frameworks and cybersecurity posture and the facilities we provide, we are happy to provide the payment infrastructure for this initiative, or whatever is required, whether it be domestic payments or cross-border payments.
I would like you to elaborate on the challenges that are to be overcome, hopefully in the near future, in time for the launch of our project, with respect to the payments for Caribbean persons. In a nutshell, we can go online and we can use our credit cards and we can max them out to our heart's desire. But for us in this part of the world, getting persons to pay us online and to be able to cash out continues to be a bit of a challenge, not necessarily only with respect to the ability to get those plugins in the back end of our sites, but getting the cash out. So perhaps you can share some insights in terms of what do you see as the way forward to help to simplify that process?
Well, we are in the process of launching an e-commerce solution. I have my product and marketing here. They can wax poetically on the innards of the e-commerce solution, but I dare say it's the next generation based on what's currently available. I mean, currently, as a small business, you're going to have to use one of the established, the PayPals, the Stripes, and so on and so forth. And then with the fee structure, which is quite onerous, right, for a small business, even large businesses. We talk about the fees, and the merchants have complained about the fees at point of sale is even worse online, right? So that is a major friction point. One, the ability to get a viable, working, easy to use e-commerce solution as is, and two, the fee structure, right? So I think those are some of the things the frictions that we are aiming to tackle. And we all understand that growth of the Barbados economy, of the Caribbean economies, is really going to come from the small businesses, the entrepreneurs. The large companies have had their day, right? I'm part of that. But really, the real growth is going to come from entrepreneurial SME, small business and medium-sized business activity, and the ability to safely and securely trade inter-island. And that's what I see this project as fulfilling. And from a payments perspective, like I said, looking at the cost points.
Mr. Hinkson, I can see you're itching to get in on this discussion as president of the e-commerce division. I would love to hear your thoughts on how we can help to catalyze our small businesses in the Caribbean to be able to take advantage of the Connect Caribbean e-commerce platform.
Thank you. Wow. I am so excited by this prospect. This has been a long time coming. I lived in New Zealand for a few years, and I watched their indigenous e-commerce platform called TradeMe. It started in 1999 with 10 people, an investment of a couple $1,000s. And in 7 years, it was sold for $700 million. In a few more years after that, in 2014, it was sold for $2.5 billion. E-commerce has the capacity to transform how we as a region do business. And as I said earlier, bring wealth creation. An article I was reading this recently, young lady, now she's in America, takes her grandmother's hair mayonnaise recipe and starts to make her mayonnaise for friends and family. It goes from friends and family to neighbors till she decides, hey, let me just try listing this on Amazon. She comes home in the evening. She spends a few hours making product and packaging her product. And then her parents ship it out in the morning via one of the major courier companies. She's making $15,000 a year at 15 years old. This is what we can do as a region with the indigenous ideas, the product quality. Dr. Thomas loves to talk about his beauty products from the Amazon. There's so many things that we as people in our region do which are top class, and we have a $4 billion e-commerce spend that goes out of our region. We need to take that back. And that's where Connect Caribe's e-commerce platform comes in, being able to provide a quick and easy onboarding process for entrepreneurs, allowing them to access not just a market of 300,000, but a market of up to 18 million people within the region. Now that means there's a lot that means, and we need to have our partnerships. Caribbean Export, let me give big props to Caribbean Export. I'm a success story of Caribbean Export myself. But if you are an entrepreneur and you want to get your product out to 18 million people, recognize that that demographic is not just the English-speaking Caribbean. You're dealing with DR, you're dealing with the French territories, you're probably even dealing with the Dutch territories, which means that your branding now cannot just be in English. You have to then look to get your branding in the languages that you are sending your product out to. You can't just wait or have a system where you're producing on demand. You have to now start to look to actually put on consignment, put aside a set of products that you are going to be selling online. You can't come online and say, well, I'm selling marmalade, but then when the orders come in, you have no ingredients. This is not something we're going to be allowing as our e-commerce platform, because we want to build a trustworthy e-commerce platform, both for sellers and for vendors. And again, we cannot have that without the payment systems, without the CARICOM coins, without having the capacity to pass finances from the sellers to the vendors in a transparent and a quick fashion. So I'll leave it there.
Very insightful. I love your storytelling too. We move on now to Mr. Dave Sahadat of Global Integrated FinTech Solutions. We heard just now some of the challenges and what will not be tolerated. Maybe you can share some more in terms of the best practices that we should be reaching for as we embark on this new journey.
Thank you very much. So first of all, a little bit about my company, Global Integrated FinTech Solutions. We are a fintech company that provides scalable fintech solutions across the value chain. And what does that mean? We provide technology simply to any company of any size in various silos. Like Sagicor Bank, we are homegrown, although we have now expanded our wings and we are now global. So we provide payment solutions, we provide various business intelligence tools, and we operate on the premise that one size does not fit all. Now, as we speak to payments in particular, and allow me just to slightly digress, our platform, the way that we have looked at it, you see, far too often in the region, we have become good followers and nobody wants to hear about new innovations. I welcome all solutions. The way that our platform is built is that it allows to, in other words, we don't try to compete with banks. We don't try to do what Sagicor Bank is doing. What we simply doing is that through our platform, we're able to facilitate any and everyone. So for example, one of the things that I was suggesting to Dr. Thomas is that if we're going to talk about great customer experience, it starts from the reservation. It starts from the first interaction. And therefore being able to digitize that entire process from inception, from the time the customer logs on to either book their cargo or a passenger seeking to purchase, a ticket, it should start there. But then it further continues to actually what happens on the cruise and the cruise experience. There's great talk about the customer experience on Connect Caribe, and what they're saying is that people should have the opportunity to purchase meals and stuff like that. So I'm saying that within that we create, and why not? Instead of having to go to PayPal or having to go to one of these, we are actually, based on our platform, are able to provide a Connect Caribe app that starts from the very inception, all right, from the customer experience to go through. Another thing, and don't get me wrong, I've worked with Visa and MasterCard for a long time, but I'm saying, why Visa, why MasterCard? Perhaps they could be enhancers, but why don't we have our own internal payment system that connects the Caribbean? I think this is really what is needed. You see, far beyond the time someone once said to me that, oh, their particular credit union was now about to visit cards. And I said, I can't congratulate you to that. You're 15 years late to the party. You see, payments have gone, as George would tell you, from checks, right, to cards. Now it's to apps. So what we are therefore suggesting and, wish to provide at the Connect Caribe level is we want to leap forward into the future, whereby we provide our own what is called closed loop solution that, yes, you perhaps, will not be allowed to utilize cash on board a ferry, but whether by virtue of using your Visa, MasterCard, or cash, you can top up your app. And guess what? The way that it's being designed, it can be used in any currency. And we always say, just like one of our former leaders of Barbados, our first Prime Minister, the Right Excellent Earl Walton Barrow, friends of all and satellites of none. We are not opposed, we are not against anyone. We are not against Visa, we are not against MasterCard, but what we are for is for regional integration in the space of e-commerce. So what we are actually will be doing, and from our vantage point, is that our platform totally ubiquitous, agnostic, so that whether it's a Caribe coin, whether it is Visa, but we are able to integrate into anyone. You see, we don't compete with anyone, but we are able to make your payments and facilitate things in a safe, integrated space. So, I do think that is within our hands, because I don't want to get too deep into the technology, but George here on my right, as a technology person, will tell you that all Visa, MasterCard is what we call a switch that just connects, people and businesses. And I'm saying, so isn't it time that we have our own Caribbean switch? Why can't we? And I therefore see Connect Caribe as a vehicle that promotes e-commerce, as Anthony was talking about over here. We're moving our people, and we want to do so in a way that we don't separate people. Oh, we don't accept TT dollars, only US dollar. You see, while I am a long-standing resident of the US, I believe that far too long, the United States dollar has been a barrier to financial inclusivity. And what we have to do is to look past that. So one of the things being proposed is that you should be able to, on this cruise or the form of cargo, pay in any form of payment, whether it is TT dollar, whether it is the Barbados dollar, the Jamaican dollar, whatever it is. This is what it is that we are proposing. We are saying, let's have a new paradigm. There's no reason, and I'll try and conclude here shortly and leave some other room, but I just get very passionate about this subject. However, there's no reason, for example, why we have given our payment switch over to a Visa or MasterCard, and many of you don't realize that you go to purchase a roti at Chefette, and that drains the country of foreign exchange, because guess what? Am I lying, George? A portion of that spend has to go to Visa. Why are we doing this? You're buying a roti at Chefette, but Visa International gets money. And by the way, anytime Visa comes into a country or MasterCard, that country has to sign an agreement that regardless of whatever is going on in your country, they get paid first. So I'm saying is that the same way that Connect Caribe is saying, hey, let's create a new paradigm in cargo, let's create a new paradigm in moving passengers. I'm going to challenge, as long as His Excellency will have me around, I'm going to challenge him to make sure that we create a new paradigm as far as payments is concerned. And we say, yes, we got one that we call our very own.
Thank you so much. Just keep the passion level steady. We will come back to you soon. I want to engage Mr. Bevel at this stage. As a supply chain expert, you're somebody who sees the forest for the trees, where the rubber hits the road. That's your expertise. What are we not focusing on as yet, or what have you not heard said as yet, as we look at this intersection between e-commerce and maritime logistics? And how can we perhaps optimize what we are planning to do to ensure that we can maximize trade in the Caribbean?
Thank you for having me. I'd also want to add, I was in Guyana last week when that global supply chain debacle was unfolding, and I had my Sagicor card on me. Right. So I was able to, I kid you not, my wife called me and said, "Did you hear what's happening?" And I said, "No." And she was speaking about, obviously, Microsoft and everything that's happening. So I said, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Scotia. I'm going to take out some money." And she, "You sure it's going to work?" I said, I wasn't. To be honest, I wasn't. But the ease with which I was able to take out the equivalent of maybe 1,500 Bajan dollars in Guyana for, I kid you not, the equivalent of just under 10 US dollars, 10 Bajan dollars. That was what was charged for me. All right. So just saying that what we have locally homegrown is a system that works. It's not perfect, and we will always need room for improvement. And that's from a payments perspective. From a supply chain perspective, I have a unique point of view in that I work with SMEs here in Barbados, as well as SMEs in Guyana, in developing their capacity, not just to produce, but also their ability to develop products to export. And what I recognize is that there are certain commonalities. There's a lack of awareness of tools that are able to level the playing field between SMEs and media and larger businesses. There is also a lack of willingness to embrace innovation and change. What I would say, though, is that Barbados has a more enabling environment for entrepreneurs and SMEs to utilize this infrastructure to catapult their product into export markets. Where that difference is in Guyana is that while there may be persons, and there are persons that are producing high quality product, the culture in Guyana is one that embraces cash and not necessarily card. And because of that, you find, especially now with the increase in economic activity in Guyana, there are opportunities, huge opportunities being missed because of the lack of acceptance of card, right? There is a local digital or a mobile money payment system that is in place, but there is still a ways to go in terms of its functionality within that e-commerce space. Sometimes it's misused, but what I would say that there's a story that captures the willingness of the society to embrace digital payments. And this, don't quote me on this, but I was told a driver was stopped on the East Bank Highway for speeding, and the officer said, "Help me help you." But there was nothing that the driver could do. But the officer said, "Call your boss and tell him send something to MMG." So that, while it's nefarious, right, it shows that people are accepting that money is not the only means of accepting payments, however that may be. What I find as well is that with the influx of expats into the country, a lot of pressure is being placed on the private sector to create these avenues for digital payments. What my agency is doing in Guyana, as I said, I represent the Guyana Office for Investment for Export Promotion. And our office, the director, the head of my office also sits on the board of Caribbean Export. And what we're doing at the end of August, we're going to be having a exporter development forum, right? Where we are going to gather all of the SMEs that have qualified to be a part of this program to engage them in the development of their capacity, their systems, as well as their product development, and leaning on our partnership with Caribbean Export to help them to understand the gap that exists between where they currently are and where they need to be engaged in a global economy. From an e-commerce perspective, that is something that we're working with the private sector to make sure that awareness is being built. And I welcome the addition of Carib Connect to the market as a means to which these entrepreneurs can then get their goods out into the region. Last year, we took part in AgroFest, and out of that, we yielded a number of distribution contracts. However, there has been unanswered call from consumers here in Barbados for Guyanese product. part of that on answering or lack of ability to answer is the ability to connect their cargo at scale, right? We have worked with Tropical to provide LCL cargo, dry containers. However, there's still a minimum cubic meter requirement that we have not yet been able to consistently attain. So in some cases, there are orders that have been prepared, but because the orders have not met the minimum volume requirement, they were not able to be sailed, right? So having said that, we've engaged airline services and we've developed partnerships with Suriname Airways, and we're looking forward eagerly to develop and deepen the relationship that we have with Carib Connect. And at the Caribbean Investment Forum, we actually did have a brief meeting with the heads of the agency, some things that we will follow through with, to invite Carib Connect to our Exporter Development Forum to share, right? Because I believe that we have to create awareness, because if no one knows your services are available, no one is going to be able to purchase it. We can then leverage the expertise of those e-commerce professionals and the tech guys to be able to make sure that things are as seamless and as value added as possible. Because again, these are small and medium-sized companies, and while getting the product into new markets is exciting, making sure that their business model is sustainable is also paramount.
Thank you so much. We've heard it mentioned several times today, the extent to which being able to successfully embark on e-commerce can certainly help to create exponential growth for the Caribbean. My question to you, Mrs. Edwin Walcott, Natasha, is how do you think Caribbean export perhaps can scale to keep up with the potential for growth that we are discussing here today, to ensure that our SMEs en masse are able to onboard with the e-commerce platforms and comply with the requirements to be able to trade smoothly?
Thanks for that. So we've been discussing it. We've been talking about it. And I will give you again, practical example. And I think it was Mr. Hingsun who mentioned it. We have amazing world-renowned products. We have scarce supply. Over the last couple of years, and indeed when we looked at the market insights, the data, it showed that since COVID, there's been an increased demand for the turmeric, your ginger, the products that we say our grandmother's recipe, etc. But what we don't have is the technical know-how for the most part, the proof or the standard requirements that maybe an EU market or a US market would require. So it's all good and well to say, hey, this rub is great for arthritis, but we need the lab and we need those sort of international standards to meet that product, that consumer demand. Consumers also want right now, they also want to know where the products come from. So there's this thing about traceability. They want to feel that they're making a difference, that when they buy something, they could almost feel like they're giving back to the farmer. So a company in one of our beneficiaries from Belize that makes world-renowned turmeric products, they have a very good sustainability plan. They're talking about how they give back to the environment. They're paying good wages to their farmers. So a lot of what we need is to ensure that our farmers, our producers meet the international standards, that they can produce when they say they're going to produce. Another problem that our traders and our farmers have, or even businesses, is an issue of trust. So Gavin spoke about not being able to fulfill the shipping requirements. And we've said to our producers time and time again, consolidate. But they don't want to. I don't know what it is about Caribbean people not wanting to. So everybody for them is a competition, right? Or competitor. But we don't see it as if 5 of us come together and we each have a pallet, we can supply that product to a particular market, right? So these are the very serious challenges that we deal with on a regular basis. We do our part by raising awareness. We have EPA training, that's the European Partnership Agreement, which is essentially the agreement for the CARICOM, CARIForum to to access the EU market. Over the COVID period, we had a 4-part series on digital payments, e-commerce, etc., that had more than 2,500 beneficiaries from the Caribbean. That goes to show you that there's serious interest for our companies to get it right. We work with several partners. So, for instance, we're working right now with the EU. It's an EU Latin American and the Caribbean Digital Accelerator Program. And this is a program that seeks to partner startups from the Caribbean with corporations from Europe and Latin America. And that is to say, a corporation from Latin America or Europe has a problem, and they're going to post on a platform, I have a challenge, and they're inviting Caribbean startups to come up with the solution. And so a Caribbean startup that has that solution will then be matched with that corporation from the EU, and then you have those partnerships being formed whereby you have transfer of technology, of skills, and upskilling of our businesses to really meet the international standards that are required to do business. But there's a plethora of products and services that we have from the region. It's just a matter of meeting the scale, the quality that the international market demands.
Thank you so much. Definitely.
I just wanted to add something. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
What I wanted to add as well is that in the work that I'm doing here in Barbados with the trust fund, there has been a push, because so far when we think of exports, we think of tangible products. But one of the things that has been sort of stimulated is the development of services with e-commerce, and with the ability to have these cross-border payments. The ability to buy and sell services in the region is one that is extremely, extremely lucrative. We have persons with high skill, very, very niche skills that are based all over the region, but because of the lack of ability to access payments, they're not able to move their services beyond their borders without physically moving. And what I think COVID has done for us is to open our eyes to the possibility of delivering value from where you currently are to persons and populations miles away. So definitely, having businesses and small and medium-sized businesses in the area of services is one of those things that we've been really pushing for the development of here in Barbados as well.
What I'd like to add to that, if we look at this panel on this stage, I don't want us to put what the average age is.
20-something.
20-something. We don't really have Gen Z represented on stage. And Gen Z's modus operandi is we want to do anything, anywhere. So I have a Gen Zer at home who does not want to live necessarily in Barbados. She wants to travel the world and work wherever. When we put together this e-commerce platform, we have to be able to sell digital products as well as physical products. We need to be able to, as was just said by Gavin, that we need to have the capacity to allow them to sell their services so that they can live in Barbados, they can take the ferry and have a timeshare in St. Vincent, and they can still be working and still accessing clients via the e-commerce platform. This has to be a win-win, because we have to not just address, the median age on stage. We need to be looking to this next generation of what they're going to need and envision that for them.
Agreed. Mr. Sahadath, Dave. On the outside, we talked briefly about the lessons that you might have learned from the business that you have conducted in the e-commerce space in West Africa. Are there any lessons for us in the Caribbean? And certainly, can you share some more about the business intelligence tools that you found to be most helpful in accelerating e-commerce?
Certainly, doing business in Africa, one of the things that we recognize is that number one, similar to the Caribbean, Africa is just not one country. It's a continent made up of several countries. And to do business successfully, one cannot take necessarily a Barbados model and expect that it will be adopted to work there. So one of the things that we've always made a point in doing is to never try to go it alone and to go into any market, but to partner with established companies that their business ethos and practices, certainly line up with yours, or in our case, ours. So one of the lessons learned is that number one, you have to find the right partners. In Ghana, one of the things, as a matter of fact, by having the experience of traveling to Caribbean export and development agencies, one of the great things that came out of that is I believe that we are the first company in the Caribbean to have signed an agreement with the Ghana Chamber of Commerce, which now gives us access to 8,000 members. So by doing, something like that, or being able to form those types of strategic alliances, it gives you, or it shortens rather, your time to market and penetration. As I said, or Barbados way of, our Caribbean way of thinking, expect it will work in Africa. Always understand that they're all different culturally, and just as how we have this sense of competitiveness within the Caribbean, it is so among the Africans. Don't ever get involved in the argument between who does the best jollof rice between Ghanaians and Nigerians. It simply won't work, right? It's just as bad as me arguing with Gavin that Mount Gay is better than El Dorado. So certain things that you get away from conversations. To answer your question now in terms of business tools, we have created a reporting tool that allows businesses to analyze their own data. So for example, with using Caribe Connect, if they want to understand which were the most profitable markets, which, in terms of, they're looking in terms of a fuel burn, which is the most economical, what particular age group, for example, is utilizing the service more. These are the types of insights that we use with our business intelligence tools, which really allows you to be able to make key management decisions, whether that decision is one of marketing, whether it's one of finance. It allows people to interrogate their own data, and about it is that it doesn't require any IT expertise. So management is able to implement and extrapolate the type of data that sometimes the rest of the personnel are not even aware of. So that's one example of one of our business intelligence tools. One other that I will mention quickly, as we know, as e-commerce rises, so does fraud. Let's not try to get away from that big white elephant in the room. Fraud is on the rise, and we have to keep up because the fraudsters seem to stay ahead of everything, and they notice every trend, and they know what the weaknesses are and how they should penetrate. We have a tool for e-commerce, which we offer to any online merchant, which allows the detection of fraud for any transaction, and is one that is completely not scalable, but it also can be set in such a way that parameterized, I should say, that you can say, not only can the platform make decisions for you to tell you if this is highly likely to be a fraudulent transaction or not, and it has almost a 97% degree of accuracy. We'll never get 100%. George expects 100% from satisfaction. We're saying that the 96% in the area of fraud is pretty good for us, but that's one of the things that we do, because as online commerce grow, so will fraud. But the beauty about having a platform like that is that you can pretty much say, look, we're not going to allow any transaction over $1,000 to go through overnight. Let us have this reviewed until the morning where we can look deeper. First, we maybe decide, for example, that we are not taking any orders from the Middle East. For example, from Yemen or wherever, you can actually segment by geography the rules and regulations that you want parameterized. So those are just two of the examples that we have as far as tools are concerned. Dr. Thomas, you will note that as we develop a system for you is that one of the things that we'll do is ensure that every last payment is fraud checked, so that that does not become an area of loss for the organization.
Are you hearing me? Okay. Yes, I really appreciate that last comment because it's a perfect segue back to Sagicor Bank. We know that anti-money laundering and anti-terrorist financing regulations have been the bane of existence for a number of our banks in the region, leading to a lot of de-risking. And we are trusting that with your innovative business model that you will have some insights to enable us to be able to circumvent and be able to trade more freely than we would have been in the past. Perhaps you can give us some idea of what
Well,
Sagicor's perspectives are on this.
Circumvent isn't the right word. You don't want to because I'm sure my regulators, and by the way, we are regulated.
Very well what I said.
So we're not going to be doing any circumventing. However, we're going to make
Circumventing.
simplify, make it easy.
Simplify is a
Yes.
good word, yes.
And what
But
we
certainly
do-
a lot of it has been pressure on us that in many ways may be deemed overt compared to other places in the world.
And there are reasons for that. However, what we have done, as we've done in a retail setting, we've worked very closely with our regulator to engineer an easy to use onboarding process. And we're in the process of doing similar for small businesses and corporates in general. The regulations are there for a reason. And they've been well publicized instances of blacklists and so on, which are the bane and de-risking, as you've said. So, the region, we don't set the rules for ourselves. However, we're looking at the rules were set in a time when client experience was not at the front of the mind.
Correct.
However, for both the banks and the regulator, the client experience, in addition to safety, is at the front of the mind. Because if the client experience isn't good, then people start thinking about circumvention, right? And then it defeats the purpose of having the regulation in the first place. So it's what we do, and I can speak for Sagicor Bank, but also in my larger remit as deputy chair of the Bankers Association of Barbados. Everyone is focused on client experience, and certainly, and now specifically for Sagicor Bank, we are working very assiduously to make sure that onboarding, whilst it takes into consideration the KYC and AML, it does so in as painless a process as we can possibly muster. There are a few other things in the infrastructure that are evolving, and if you've checked the media, there was a presentation with the central bank. I sat on a central bank panel yesterday. We're looking at certain infrastructural things in the payments infrastructure to make it even easier. And certainly, I know that as time goes on and as our national digital ID evolves, the ability for a person to be digitally identified by anyone, that tool will help reduce some of the frictions that and then I have to find other competitive advantages. But until such a time, like I said, we are working to make the onboarding experience for corporates close to or analogous to our onboarding experience for our mass market retail individuals.
And small businesses?
That SMEs, yes.
Awesome.
Specifically, especially.
Very good. I believe Dr. Thomas wanted to make a few remarks. And then we'll take a few questions.
Okay, thank you. No, this has been a very insightful panel, and it's a panel full of partners that I just wanted to acknowledge. So very thankful for Caribbean Export. We definitely would not be at the stage we are with Connect Caribbean if it wasn't for the Caribbean Investment Forum. So I just want to thank you for that. And then we have Sagicor Bank. So Sagicor Bank will be the bank for Connect Caribbean. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then we have Dave. Dave is a new advisory board member of Connect Caribbean. Give him a hand, and we're looking forward to working with Dave and with the technology. And also, we also have Gavin, and Gavin is also coming on as an advisory board member as well. So thank you. So we are very excited about this area because I believe it has the potential to unleash thousands of new entrepreneurs. I remember the conversation we had, Dave. We had George, and I've actually quoted it many times. And you actually said this to me, and I actually like the language that you used. And you said, when you attended the first press conference that we had, you said, I can see you have a really great game here. But what I like about your game, it creates a game for thousands of people who never had a game. So that's really, for me, why the e-commerce is really such a great thing, because it's going to create a wealth creation game for people who never had a chance. And that's why I mean this is so important. Okay, good.
Are there any questions for our panel this evening? Okay, well, with the remaining time, we'll invite each panelist to give their closing comments, starting with Natasha.
Yes, thank you. Just want to say to Dr. Thomas and the team, we're really proud that the Caribbean Investment Forum and of course Caribbean Export was there from the beginning, and we're just as an entity working in development, working with SMEs, we're just really excited by the possibilities and using your words about wealth creation, and we're just excited to see where this takes us. So congratulations.
I echo Natasha's words and Dr. Thomas. You connected with us close to the beginning, and it's really intriguing and inspiring to see the vision bear fruit. Over the years, there's been lots of talk about regional integration and so on, but it's really, we are countries with some similar underpinnings of culture, but interesting differences. However, the ability to trade, I think, is what, and trade with fewer frictions or minimum frictions is what's really going to cement us and bring us together. And I mean, we saw over the years the European Union come together as a unit. So now this is one of those underpinnings which I believe can help us to come together as a unit in this part of the world, in this region, the Caribbean basin. So I congratulate you and your team, and we look forward to progressing.
Well, I too would like to echo those sentiments. There's a quotation that goes like this: seeing is a function of the eyes, vision is a function of the heart. So having said that, Dr. Thomas, I salute you for this visionary approach to a ferry service. And we certainly at our organization look forward to partner with you to give any advice, providing any support that we can in the area of fintech and payment solutions and helping to enhance that entire customer experience. So we salute you. And let me just encourage everyone in this room that these businesses are not sustained just by talk. So when in actual fact it is launched, the whole idea would be that every single person supporting wherever possible. We have to sustain. We have asked for something. We recognize that there's been a void in the market. So then once launched, it will be up to us to support. Thank you.
All right. I think it's a privilege to be here. And I just like to give you a bit of backstory. I'm Guyanese. I live in Barbados, and I've worked throughout the region, and none of it would have been possible without CARICOM and the movement of professionals and people across the region. My father was able to get an education here, get his PhD in Trinidad, and then move back home, but allowed him to provide for his children an opportunity that he himself would have had to work extremely hard for, things that I now take for granted. I've had the opportunity to work in regional travel before and being able to see the region and see the power that travel and connectivity can have on this region. And I believe it's a privilege to be a part of this, initiative. In the many hats that I hold, I wish to contribute to making the reality of one Caribbean really possible. I myself am a member of a multinational family. My wife is St. Lucian. I'm Guyanese. The only Bajan in the family is my daughter. And I would like to be able to say, let's go home to your grandparents in Guyana, jump on a boat, and enjoy the trip there, rather than being squished and having to ease up, right? So if this, I would rather say, if God wills this to happen, I don't think anybody can stop it.
What this experience has shown me is that this is a multi-generational thing. And when I first spoke to my father and told him I'm in part of this ferry project, he's like, ferries? And he started telling me about his trips on the Federal Maple, leaving Barbados at 6 a.m., going over to St. Vincent, spending the entire day having fun and coming back at 10 o'clock. I had never heard that story out of his mouth in 40 enough years. Never heard that story, but then it became even more real when I started thinking of my grandfather, who was a seaman in the early 40s and 50s and traveled up and down the Caribbean chain. We have a rich history as a people in trade in our region. And we are now just making it more modern. It is not a new story. We are revisiting an old story and making it more real and relevant to this generation. And I'm really excited to be part of this project.